Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Legends of Takaful, a podcast series proudly put together by actuarial partners celebrating 40 years of Takaful in Malaysia. So, who is a legend? It's easy to look back and see who is a legend, as hindsight is 2020. But what about the current leaders in Takaful? Who will be the legends of tomorrow? In this series, we'll sit down and have a conversation with pioneers and founders of Takaful in Malaysia. People who truly shaped the industry, going beyond the numbers and finding out what really inspired them, their challenges and struggles, as well as their insights. We truly hope that this will both help drive Takaful forward for the next 40 years, as well as assist countries in just starting out with Takaful. In the first 10 years of Takaful, there was only one operator, Syarikat Takaful Malaysia, or STM. Anyone entering the STM office during those days knew things were done differently. The first time I went to a meeting with the CEO there, Dato Mohd Fadzli, I even remember having to take my shoes off at the entrance of the floor. They had a monopoly at that time, and they focused on establishing a presence, rather than having the cheapest rates and fierce competition. Back then, the loss ratios for motor business were noticeably better than conventional insurance, which was surprising due to the small size of STM, and the need to be large and strong enough to control the workshops. STM used Bank Islam branches as the main distribution source. The second entrant was Takaful National, or TN, the Takaful operations of the national insurer MNI. TN is now Etika and focused on agency force distribution during those days. Those days we had heavy debates on whether it was acceptable to have agents selling Takaful, promoting actually, as how the model would work, as until that point we used a Mudarabah model, with the operator paying most expenses out of surplus sharing, which occurs at the end of the year. Several years later, Maybank obtained a Takaful license, and TN eventually combined with Maybank Takaful to give rise to Etika, which had a full lineup of agency and bancassurance distribution channels for Takaful, as well as conventional insurance. During the same time, the first Retakaful operator in Malaysia started, Ariel. So whereas the first operator relied on bank branches, and the second operator relied on its existing agency force infrastructure, Takaful Ikhlas, starting 10 years after TN, had to start from scratch. This led the CEO, Dato Mohd, to drive a number of innovative solutions, including bringing the Wakala model over from the Middle East. This represents roughly the halfway point so far of the Takaful journey in Malaysia. Several years later, the era of the multinationals in Takaful began, with a range of global insurers and reinsurers recognizing the potential of this market. Prudential in particular brought synergy to its products, creating Takaful equivalents of its conventional insurance products, especially unit-linked plans. This was also the time that Bank Negara really strengthened the regulatory focus on Takaful through JPIT. Regulations were held fairly consistent between Takaful and conventional insurance, with the goal of creating a level playing field. Today, Takaful is at a crossroads in Malaysia. Although we've come a long way, we still have a long way to go to rival conventional insurance in Malaysia. Will Takaful focus on consistency with conventional insurance? Or will there be increasing innovation in the models used as well as market segments focused on? Will we be able to use Takaful to increase insurance penetration in Malaysia, especially underserved markets? Insurance in any form is about managing risks and building trust. Takaful can truly be key in many market segments in building this trust and forming the foundation of a population that understands its risks and how to manage them. This is the foundation of true financial literacy, which must be a goal for the next 40 years. Actuarial Partners has been involved since the beginning of Takaful in Malaysia and has been involved in some way with all the Takaful operators here. We truly hope that this podcast series is useful and the next 40 years of Takaful development is equally exciting. Malaysia boleh.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Hi everyone. My name is Zainal Abidin bin Muhammad Kasim from Actuarial Partners Consulting. And welcome to the Legends of Takaful podcast. Today we have the honor of having with us Dato Fadzli bin Muhammad Yusof, who started Syarikat Takaful Malaysia, the very first Takaful operator in Malaysia. Thank you very much for joining us, Dato Fadzli.
Thank you so much for having me. First, I would like to thank you so much, and to record my appreciation for your efforts, for your kind effort, sincere effort by having this program, which I understand in celebration of 40 years anniversary of Takaful in Malaysia.
That is
So I
true.
think that this is a laudable what you call a move to ensure that the spirit of Takaful is well appreciated and well understood by all. Thank you so
Inshallah,
much. Thank
inshallah.
you. Thank you.
I think Dato, I mean, you're basically, when I say Legends of Takaful, you are the first legend. So it is our honor actually to host you in this podcast, and we would like to appreciate as well making time for us today to have these discussions. So let me start with some questions. Perhaps you can help to provide the kind of background as to your how you actually got into Takaful in the first place. So can you share with us your early years? Where were you born, and how was life like at that time? What were your best memories during those days?
Well, I started schooling pre-Merdeka, pre-independence. I started my primary in 1952. So that's way back for independence. As you know, during those days, the career guidance, not as known or not as what we know today. The very basic objective at that time to go to school is probably to get a school certificate, and after that you started as a clerk somewhere with the government. And then on that note, I would like to express also my thanks to my father, my parents, for sending me to an English school. I come from Terengganu, as you said. At that time, must be the most backward state in Malaya at that time. There were only one school, one English school, happened to go there. Then the primary school until 1962, I took my overseas school certificate. Because of the age problem, for example, I was unable to go a better school to apply for, say, a boarding school like the Federation Military College at that time called RMC, because of the age. That's one. The other hurdle was that it was not easy to continue your education, secondary education, up to sixth form level. Number one, you must pass an entrance exam. Even you pass the entrance exam, then if you don't score the level of grade in your school certificate exam, then you have to leave. Because result normally will be announced. The school certificate result will only be announced in March, and you have to start the sixth form class in January. Once the result came out 2-3 months later, then suddenly you were disqualified. Then you have to leave. Very sad, from whatever school. But in Terengganu at that time, there was not even a sixth form class. So many of us had to migrate to other states to continue their study. So as a result of that, if I could look back, many of my sort of schoolmates, they went to the university later. Once they finished the Form 5, obtained their school certificate results, then they started either a teacher, in their career, become a clerk. Then when the opportunity got better later, then only they will be able to pursue for the tertiary education to the university level. So that was the position at that time. As I said, the only thing that we had in mind is that when we go to an English school, we hope to secure a job, to secure a career, probably in the civil service, state civil service. Then after that, that's it. But compared to the present, compared to the generation later, number one, it was easy for them to go to sixth form. Then there were a lot of colleges, like the ITM at that time, for them to pursue further education. So it was a different ball game together. But personally, I was a bit ambitious. When I was young at that time, I said, I do not want to work in Terengganu. I have to migrate somewhere. So I started looking for opportunities outside Terengganu. So I started my career actually in broadcasting. So it is not easy also from a person from Terengganu with a Terengganu dialect to be able to be a broadcaster. So during those days, when you are a broadcaster, you're quite famous because there were no TV at that time. So I used to read news and whatnot over radio Malaysia at that time.
In English?
No, not in Malay.
In Malay.
During those days, the radio, even the radio Malaysia at that time, they have 4 sections. They what call it? It's donated by color, blue, green, and then we have the Malay section. We call it Malay division, Bahagian Melayu. This is where all the Malay broadcasting was managed. Then again, I had the opportunity in 1970. I went to London. I joined the BBC. I was working in the overseas service of BBC in the Malay section. So then, in the opportunity, that's where the opportunity struck you probably. Then, of course, I was lucky perhaps because the Malay section was very small. It is integrated together with the Indonesian section. The Indonesian part was slightly larger. So we broadcast at that time. The broadcast time was only for 15 minutes a day. So I have plenty of time. So there I pursued studies on my own. That's how, I developed the career. So it was not designed from the beginning. It was, as you try to improve yourself from time to time.
Would you enroll yourself in university or polytechnic?
Yes. I studied. I took a professional, in London, one of the colleges there, on a sandwich course. They have a sandwich course. So when I came back, I joined Bank Bumi Putra. So that was my exposure to the private sector and in the financial sector. All right. So I joined, and eventually I headed the marketing department of Bank Bumi Putra at that time. What I pursued also in my study there was marketing, in the area of marketing. Therefore, I began to see working in the private sector. And furthermore, it was on the financial side. I was there for about from 1976 to 81, early 81, about 4 years. Then all of a sudden came the project. At that time, why not we do something on Islamic finance side? So my boss at Bank Bumi at that time was Dr. Abdul Halim, Dr. Abdul Halim. He was the first or the founder, managing director of Bank Islam.
Sorry, that Bank Islam basically was established before you left Bank Bumi, obviously.
No. Bank Islam was not yet established. When I was at Bank Bumi, the Bank Islam was not yet established. Let me tell you, you see. But I was not long, I must say that. I wasn't long with Bank Bumi. I started the marketing department. There was no marketing department as such at Bank Bumi during those days. So I started it. So Alhamdulillah, we perform. I must say that we perform. Whatever the bank targeted, we managed to bring whatever business that the bank wanted. Then I left the bank in order to, probably in my mind, to have a complete sort of financial sector. If there's an opportunity, I would like to join insurance. And knowing particularly at that time, there were not many Malay Bumi Putra Muslims working at the management level in the insurance sector. So I joined insurance, MNI.
Malaysia
National Insurance, which was part of Pernas at that time. So I was there. I started as a senior manager, and when I left, I was assistant general manager. Then during that time, it was 1981. I joined MNI in 1981. Out of the blues, Dr. Halim called me. He said that we have planned, or we are in the process of looking into Islamic insurance. See, let me tell you the reason why Islamic insurance came into discussion was that at that time, Malaysia was to embark upon Islamic banking. So I think why Malaysia was considered to be in front in terms of developing Islamic finance is because of the fact that the initial move was actually championed by the government. It is not left entirely, it wasn't left entirely to the private sector. So the government then, what happened, the government formed a certain task force. In the case of Islamic banking, the government formed the National Steering Committee for the establishment of Islamic banking in Malaysia. So, then whereby the memberships of the what called steering committee comprising of senior government servants, bankers, lawyers and whatnot, So it driven by government. So actually this was emanated from a body chaired by minister at that time, or at least the KSN, the chief secretary. They call it National Islamic Consultative Body, Majlis Perundingan Islam. So Islamic Consultative Body. So this consultative body then discussed and then decided to recommend to the government that a certain a group, a team, which I said mentioned National Steering Committee, to look into how Bank Islam can be established in Malaysia. So while the National Steering Committee, I'm not a member of that, while the National Steering Committee was deliberating the issue, then the question of insurance propped up. The question was that, what happened once one Bank Islam is in operation? What about the insurance requirement? So in order to ensure that the whole transaction of Islamic banking is Syariah compliant, so the insurance part of which banking transaction will require insurance must also be in compliance with Sharia. So that's how the question of Islamic insurance came about. Again, it was referred to the Islamic Consultative Body. So then the consultative body eventually agreed that a special body be formed to look into the establishment of Islamic insurance. So this is called the Task Force for the establishment of an Islamic insurance company in Malaysia. Islamic insurance company in Malaysia. So I think the key word is the Islamic insurance company. That shows that once the Islamic insurance is to be established in Malaysia, it must be based on a business sort of concept. Okay, so I happen to be a member of that. That's when Dr. Abdul Halim called me. He said, I would like to recommend you to be a member of that task force. So to cut the story short, we deliberated the issue. The chairman was Allah Yarham, Professor Dato Ahmad Ibrahim, who was the Sheikh Kuliah, or the head of the Kuliah for law in IIU, International Islamic University. So in fact, I remember the first paper that we discussed was the paper that he prepared. The paper entitled a system or towards an insurance system based on Islamic, or towards an insurance of Islamic system, something like that. I can remember. Yeah. So
Retakaful was not there yet. The
Takaful. No. We didn't know about the word Takaful at that time. I must say, So but to me it is rather. I must admit at that time I was also new to insurance. As I told you, my background is nothing to do with insurance. So it was not by design. It was by chance that I was dragged in. So anyway, we did our task. We feel that to the best.
This was 1981, basically. Still 1981.
No. Before 1981. 1980, about around 1981. 1981. Yes, yeah. 1981. Yeah. So we worked quite fast. Then we had the opportunity to visit a number of countries, Islamic countries, which at that time claimed to have Islamic insurance operation.
Yeah.
So we were supposed to go to Sudan because we knew that in Sudan, there was Islamic Insurance Company of Sudan formed or established by the Faisal Islamic Bank. So they have, again, similarly to what happened in Malaysia, one Faisal Islamic Bank was established in operation in Sudan. The requirement for insurance must also be based on. So they formed Islamic Insurance Company of Sudan, which was owned 100% by Faisal Islamic Bank. The Islamic Insurance Company of Sudan, because we didn't go to Sudan, but we happened to what you call meet or have a meeting with the GM, the general manager of the company. He was a Pakistani. He was an expert of reinsurance for the World Bank. So he was roped in by Faisal Islamic Bank to look into establishing the insurance company called Islamic Insurance Company of Sudan. So he happened to be in Jeddah, because they had a branch in Jeddah. So we had a long discussion with him. And at that time, the company only established or only operated the general insurance, if I can say that, general insurance. Later, we found out that he told us also during that meeting that soon they wanted to also establish what they call is Mudarabah, saving and investment Takaful, which is basically the life side.
Was it called Takaful then?
They call it Takaful.
Oh, so that was the first time.
First time they call it Takaful. Okay. Then in Saudi Arabia, there was what we call as IAC, Islamic Arab Insurance Company. This is part of the Dallah Group. So we met the general manager. I still remember his name, Mahathir. We were discussing again. I understand that the company actually was incorporated in Dubai or Bahrain, I'm not sure, because there was no law in Saudi at that time. But then they have the operation in Jeddah. So we met them there. But what was interesting was that in the paper prepared, the exposure paper prepared by Allahyarham, Dato Ahmad Ibrahim, the important point stated in the paper was that under the Islamic insurance system, he said, the policyholders, we didn't the word participant
wasn't there.
No, wasn't there then. The policyholders would have the opportunity to secure free cover. Free cover. And then to enjoy profit. That's what it was stated like that. So based on that information, I personally asked, I was the one, when we went there, I was perhaps the only member who was working in an insurance company who knew a little bit about what insurance. Yeah. So I asked him, I understand, I said, that under the Islamic insurance system, there is such thing as profit sharing or whatever you want to call it. Have you paid profit? And I remember in the Sudan, the JM said, yes, we paid. Yeah. First year we paid 5%, second year 8%, third year at that time. They were established in 1979, 10%. But the Islamic Arab Insurance Company, later when we met the GM, he said we paid first year 10%, then second year 15%, then the final year, the year that we 27%. So I was, there you have something like that. But when we came back, when I talked to my friends at insurance company, how can we pay? We share profit. I mean, underwriting wise, we are not able to make money, is it?
But just now you mentioned that effectively, you're putting free cover. Who paid the premium?
Later I found out once we started operation, then only I realized what he meant by free cover. What he meant by free cover is that if the profit, you accumulated the profit, you take the aggregate of total profit over a 4-year period. Yeah. If the profit for the year is 25%, so for 4-year consecutive profit, so that will cover the 5th year premium.
So basically, you're saying that they have profit, but not necessarily they will distribute it. They might keep it back.
It may be, this is just operation.
Okay.
So I didn't go into detail.
Okay.
I didn't ask at that time because we don't have a clue how it's going to operate.
Because it's something quite new to you.
So
you're trying to learn about what's the process.
So whether you pay physically or you accumulate it, we didn't ask. This is part of detail. Then, of course, we went to what they call Egypt. Egypt was very interesting because it touched me personally. We met the Sheikh of Al-Azhar, Sheikh Al-Azhar, the grand Sheikh of Al-Azhar. His name was at that time Sheikh Gad Ali Haq. So of course he spoke in Arabic. We had somebody to translate. And he said, yes, it's the life insurance, he said. Life insurance is not Islamic. That's what he said, very clear. That's it. I know the context of Malaysia. If you are working in insurance now, please don't resign when I say that insurance is haram. Because once you want to do Islamic insurance, we have to rely people on you who have experience of working in insurance. So that touched me, that really touched me, So how beautiful our teaching of Islam is.
Yes.
I mean, we cannot simply abandon just because, it is haram.
At that point
So
of time.
we have to make sure that we have to strive hard to ensure that a system acceptable in Islam must be formed.
Yeah.
So, of course, the responsibility would first fall on us. Me, at that time, as I feel it, I'm a Muslim working in the insurance sector. So that's it. Then, but of course, in what they call in Egypt, there was no Islamic insurance as such at that point of time. Then we have the opportunity also to visit Switzerland. Switzerland, is the Mecca at that time of Islamic insurance. Islamic Finance. Darul Mal Islami, DMI. That's the head office of the Darul Mal in Geneva. That was the first time we knew about Takaful. Okay, and then that was also the first time I met a Muslim actuary.
What year was that?
81.
Still 81. 81 is very long year.
81.
We're traveling around.
We went early part of 81. So we went to Jeddah, then we went to Egypt, then we went to Geneva. A group of us, headed by Allah Yarham, Professor Ahmad Ibrahim. So we were there in Geneva. Then somehow or other, the actuary that I saw, I remember his name is Fawzi Amir. He's an Egyptian, working with Darul Mal Islami. So at that time also, it struck me that, if ever I have the opportunity to be given the trust of establishing Takaful, we need an actuary. Because I'm working insurance that I knew. So, but we don't have any Muslim actuary. This is where Zainal is important, I must say. Zainal, very young, just qualified, not even having a fellowship yet in 1981, 82. Like
Came back in 1982.
Yeah, he just that. So I told him, I know him because he's like my younger brother. I said, Nal, I want to bring you to the world of Takaful. I want you to be the actuary. Because, if you want to do Takaful, you must have an actuary who's Muslim. So luckily, Malaysia, alhamdulillah, when we started Takaful, our brother Zainal came, was suddenly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent him to Malaysia. Came back. He was working nicely in London, but somehow or other, he preferred to come back at that time. So that's how, that is history now. And I promised myself that I will bring Zainal to the world of Takaful. And alhamdulillah, that happened. He's well known among the Takaful fraternity all over the world, internationally. So that's how it started. So Fawzi Amir gave us a contract. That contract called Takaful. They have not even started yet, but this is the rough policy, like a policy, a certificate. It is actually a policy, what do you call, contents. Actually, that was family Takaful. That was life insurance Islamic way. And that was the first time we saw the word Takaful and the word Tabarruk. Tabarruk is to donate, to contribute. So under the Islamic insurance system, the premium that we paid in the form of Tabarruk or contribution. You pay a certain contribution in the form of tabarruk. That tabarruk will go into a pool of fund paid by all the other participants, and from that fund, if any mishap happen, it will be paid to others. That, you know, I do not want to go into detail of the halalness or the the haramness from the Sharia aspect. There's that history. So, but the first thing that came into our mind was that, in actual fact, what a beautiful concept Takaful is. So when we came back, this is the report that we wrote. Unfortunately, we were not able to translate that into English because of time constraint. The Islamic banking report by the National Steering Committee, there is a copy in English. Looking back, it's rather regrettable because I was part of the person writing this together with the secretariat from the Jabatan Perdana Menteri, the PM's office at that time, writing this report. So this report, we submitted to the government. So based on this report, the government accepted our recommendation, which is through the National Steering Committee, the Islamic Consultative Body. So they accepted it. And in short, what happened is that we recommended that it is not, you must remember, when we did this, it is not a viability study, A viability study or feasibility study must be based on a certain project already established.
Yeah.
But this is actually a trial and error. We just simply recommended to the authority, to the government, that can be done. It can be done. We recommended the shareholders, the capital structure, the minimum capital, also the task force even drafted the act.
The Takaful Act.
The Takaful Act. The first Takaful Act, 1984. So that was the first Takaful Act, 1984. Then why we adopt the word Takaful, the term Takaful, as not Islamic insurance? I think the wiseness of Allah Yarham, Professor Ibrahim.
Can you go into some detail? Why the word Takaful?
Number one, the concept itself is different. The concept of Islamic insurance is different from the conventional, because the Islamic insurance is part of the Islamic economy. Islamic economy is based on a trust economy,
A trust economy.
Trust economy. So the very basic objective of a person participating in an Islamic insurance company is motivated with the objective to help others. So in order to differentiate it, so the task force felt that it would be good if we adopt the word Takaful straight away as part of educating the education process.
So I think the word Takaful, I'm told that it means solidarity.
Yes.
At that point of time, was that also the perception that, in terms of Takaful is about solidarity, is about people getting together and assisting each other? I mean, just the idea behind it.
Oh yes, certainly. When we first started, it was like that. But of course, the very first day we started business, it was not like Bank Islam. The Bank Islam, the counter was broken because there was a big crowd coming in. The rush. But in our case, no, it was slow. In fact, I must admit that a big lesson to us. When we started anything new, we must not rush too much, and then probably we must not shout too much.
But I think Dato, at that score, I think one of the unique features of Syarikat Takaful Malaysia was the fact that it was a composite. You have the life business, and you have got or you call it family Takaful, which I'm going to ask you about why you call it family Takaful, and you've got the general Takaful. So in terms of the paper that was put together, was it the idea that it should be a composite, i.e., a company with both? Or because you mentioned just now Takaful and you referred to the fact that it's life. And I know that in Sudan, they have Islamic Insurance and they got Takaful.
Yeah.
Islamic Insurance is general and Takaful is family. So in Malaysia, we have always done Takaful. So the idea is, what was basically, from the perspective of a financial kind of perspective, looking backwards, composite was actually one of the reasons I think that Takaful was successful.
Yep.
Yeah. So who actually sort of decided?
Okay.
M&I was a composite, wasn't it?
Okay. Number one, at that time, insurance in Malaysia was based on composite.
Okay.
Okay, all right. So we said, as far as we're concerned, when Takaful is established, we try to follow the structure of the conventional in terms of the legal requirements.
Yeah.
So if conventional is allowed to have composite, so when we started, also of course based on the requirements of the insurance needs, of the Takaful needs of Malaysia at that time, we thought. So we started also based on composite with a paid up capital of 10 million, because under the conventional, under the Insurance Act at that time, the minimum capital required was 10 million.
This is, by the way, for the viewers, at this point in time, the regulator was actually the Ministry of Finance.
No. At the beginning, the regulator was under the Ministry of Finance.
Yeah.
It's a part of a division, insurance division.
Yeah.
So the Director General of Insurance at the time was someone from the ministry, a government servant. Right? Then later, I can't remember what year, 1980...
87, 88.
86, I think. 4 years after our operation, then
Bank
Negara took over as the regulatory body.
So at that point in time, basically, most insurance companies in Malaysia were composites.
Yep.
So that's the reason why Syarikat. By the way, who decided on Syarikat Takaful Malaysia?
Okay.
That's very important.
Okay. Again, the Badan Petugas, the task force, recommended to the government, since it's going to be the first one, to highlight the importance of Takaful that Malaysia now is championing. So it must, the company we recommend it to the government should be called Syarikat Takaful Malaysia.
So that was in the paper.
Yes, in the paper. And then at the same time, we recommended to the government that the shareholders, the potential shareholders at that time, should only be restricted to Islamic bodies, because this is a new concept. If we open it to public or to individuals or to any company, then profit motive. They want to make sure that, because we are not sure at that point of time before we started whether it's going to be making money or not.
So that's why you mentioned just now. This report was not a feasibility study.
Correct.
This report sort of highlighted that because we got Islamic banking, then there is a missing piece there, which is basically Islamic insurance.
Right.
And therefore, in order to ensure that the financial system in Malaysia can be sort of a model on an Islamic basis, you need Islamic insurance.
Correct.
So the idea of profitability, the idea whether it's feasible or not, did not come into it. The important thing is that let's see how this will progress. And because of that as well, the initial shareholders were not actually, investing public.
Yes.
It was more like, statutory bodies. Or
I can name it because it's in the report. Essentially, we recommended that there must be a majority shareholder. So EV to control from the perspective of management. So the two majority shareholders that we recommended at the time was Bank Islam and Tabung Haji.
So Tabung Haji is basically the body that that manages the Hajj
fund
for Malaysians.
Yeah, the Hajj savings, for Malaysia is a pilgrimage fund board. In English, we call it pilgrimage. This is government set up institution. It's not a company. Then Bank Islam, of course, the company is a bank. Then at the same time, in Malaysia, the religious affairs are in the hands of the respective states, essentially under the power of the Sultan. Because Malaysia, for our overseas viewers probably, is a federation of which comprising of 14 states. But 9 states are ruled by the Sultan. The head of the state is the Sultan. So religious affairs are actually vested with the respective Sultan. So in each state, there is a religious council. So religious council, for example, managing wakaf, managing zakat, managing all the Baitul Mal, and they have their own resources, financial resources. So they have fund. So all along, it was so difficult for them to invest the fund according to the Islamic way. During those days, I understand there was no choice. Many of the religious councils put their money in interest-based savings in banks because there was no Islamic bank. So when this opportunity came, we approached. I remember I have to visit, practically all the religious councils in the states, begging them, offering them fund. And many actually, positively responded. And I understand even today, they are also key shareholders and they make money anyway, alhamdulillah. So that was the position. Again, as I said, the word takaful I have already explained. But one more important information that I want to share with you now is this. You see, at that time, the Prime Minister was Dr. Mahathir. We have to present this to him because it was under his government that our team was formed. So I remember
He became Prime Minister in 1982, and basically.
Yeah, about that.
So he was quite new.
Yeah, he was quite new. Yeah, he was quite new.
Yeah.
So went to see him. I was one of the three of us went to see him. I remember we have to wait outside under the old PM's department somewhere in Kuala Lumpur near Bank Negara there. So we waited for him there. There was a cabinet meeting. And after the cabinet meeting, he came out and we presented to him this report. So in a crux, just I want to share with you, he said, I remember he said that, gentlemen, since you recommended that we should establish this, okay, we will establish it. But make sure, 10 years down the road, don't come to me saying that we need more capital because of mismanagement. So I had the opportunity for another occasion later, in 2009 or something like that. I've left the industry anyway. I was retired already. I happened to be an academic fellow with College University Islam Kedah, Queen. Now they call it UNISHAM. And during those days, every year, we had an Islamic, Langkawi Islamic International Forum, something like that. So he was invited to be the key speaker. And for his session, I was given the honor to moderate. So in my remarks, I mentioned to him that, Tone, you may not remember me. I was a very young man at that time. But, I started Takaful, and I remember when we presented the report and your response, your remark that don't come back to me, because I said, Alhamdulillah, Takaful, Syarikat Takaful Malaysia has grown, become a listed company now and doing. And then he was, he was from his profile, I can see that expression happy. That he was very happy. So that's how, the concern. So, but to me at that time it was a challenge. Now, once the Prime Minister said that to you, and then you are given a task, because at that time I was given a task.
At that time, how old were you when you first started?
1984, I was 40.
Still a very young man.
I was 40. I was born 1944, so you know my age now. I was 40, and that's how it started. But coming back to your question, why different nomenclature, Takaful, Islamic Insurance, whatnot? Again, we were lucky because, as you know, the Islamic countries under the IOC, they formed D8, Developing 8. Malaysia is a member. I'm not sure whether the D8 is still in existence today. No, I'm not sure. So in 1998, at one of the eights, Malaysia was given the task to look into Islamic finance. And I remember Deputy Governor, also a friend from Bank Negara, called me to check with me whether there are any issues that Malaysia can raise this at the D8 forum in Dhaka, in Bangladesh. So I said, my concern is that there seems to be two, terminology. One Islamic insurance, one Takaful. When you talk about Islamic insurance, it refers to general operation. When you talk about Takaful, it is the life, Islamic life. Why? Why this confusion? So this was raised to me earlier by a broker from London, international insurance broker in London. It's a big broker, also a friend, And he said, Fadli, what is this? I don't understand. As a, of course, he's a non-Muslim. Why you have two terms? So then we proposed. I said to the Bank Negara, why not bring this up? As far as Islamic insurance term is concerned, use the terminology Takaful, irrespective of whether. Then from there on, Alhamdulillah, now There is no more Islamic insurance. All using Takaful.
Yeah, but the word family takaful, when I go and do some work overseas, I just like to actually emphasize that, for life insurance, we call it family takaful.
Family Takaful.
Takaful keluarga, and emphasize the fact that you are actually providing cover for the family, not for the person.
Correct.
So who thought out of the word family takaful?
It was actually I can't remember exactly. There was a Sharia. There were three of the members were Sharia scholars.
Who were the initial Sharia scholars for Takaful Malaysia?
Unfortunately, all passed away. Yeah?
Oh.
Number one was Professor Ahmad Shabari, and then Professor Dr. Abdullah Ibrahim, and Professor Dr. Rashid Dail. Unfortunately, have
all passed away.
And Allah Subhanahu wa Taala may
bless their soul.
Bless their soul. So they have contributed quite a lot.
So it was in an internal discussion that you decided that instead of calling it Takaful nyawa or life takaful, which might have some connotations. Why not we call it family takaful?
Because eventually it is going to benefit the family. Not the person.
The person passed away.
So I think actually, why you call it life? We were discussing. I remember there was a very very intense discussion on the term. So eventually, and then of course, when you translate into English, it's nice. Also, family takaful.
Yes, very nice. Yeah.
So alhamdulillah. So that's how. So when you go to Indonesia, they got takaful keluarga.
Yeah.
So it happened.
Yeah.
So, and then of course, as I said, I touch on the legal aspect, the law. But on that basis, we must also again bless the soul of Professor Ahmad Ibrahim. He was actually, spearheaded. He's very, very focused in what he wanted to do it. And then at the same time, the Sharia scholars at that time, I remember, one of them, I can't remember exactly who, he uttered a very interesting comment. So that when we do the Islamic way, we must make sure that it is of the best management. Because Islam upholds the best management. So if in the conventional, to ensure the best management in terms of financial management, the principle of actuary, the practice of actuarial principles applied, so it must also be applied to Takaful. And then, of course, there is nothing haram, he said. But he said, I said, I understand. I remember I said, I understand it. I'm not an actuary, but again, after discussing with Zainal, I remember I mentioned your name. So there is an element of interest. Then they said, actually, it is just only what you call assumption. It is not. So in order to ensure that it is good management, you assume it's okay.
Assumption.
It's assumption.
As opposed to you're actually earning riba.
So in that process, I learned a lot.
So the Sharia there was quite well sort of
yes. And I remember when we worked, there was this the army. They call it Nafi now. I can't remember now. Before Nafi.
What's Nafi?
Now Perwira or something like that.
Oh yeah.
The army mess. So we were approached by one of these establishments to cover the assets, the under general. Likewise, some of the hotels in Malaysia.
Yeah.
So they have the Islamic illegal items like alcohol and whatnot. Like even hotel like alcohol and whatnot. So how do we cover? So we put a paper, we discussed thoroughly many times, not only one meeting, I remember. So then they referred to the old kitabs and whatnot. So the basic idea was that if we do not cover, if because of the fact that one of the items to be covered, one of the assets to be covered is sort of haram. So we cannot reject the whole thing. Then we are depriving the body or the person from having an Islamic insurance system. Likewise, mortgage. When you borrow money to buy a house, property, in a conventional bank, there is a requirement by the bank for that particular person to have an insurance cover. We call it mortgage. This is, of course, the loan was based on
conventional
riba base. Then at first, we cannot cover it. Then we put again the paper we discussed. Then the idea that, I mean, a very basic objective given by the Sharia, allowing is that we are at least allowing a part of the transaction to be based on Islamic.
So it was okay.
It was okay. It was okay. But then in the case of the hotel that I said, then what we do is that they said you can cover all, but then can you segregate the illegal or the haram and then pass it over to the reinsurance? Conventional reinsurance. Yeah. So what a beautiful after all.
But that's important because I think now what you're trying to say, Dato, is the fact that initially, and it applies to I guess anything, that you cannot be perfect from day one. You're basically saying that what is our understanding? We have to be flexible. Islam is a very understanding sort of religion. But this goes back to this issue about reinsurance. Because there was no Retakaful at that point of time. But before we go that route, Dato, a very fundamental aspect of Takaful is the operating model. And we not touch on the operating model because the operating model for the initial company, the Syarikat Takaful Malaysia, was the Mudarabah model. So where did that idea come from? That is very, very important.
See, I told you when we visited what they call the countries that I mentioned earlier, like we had a discussion with Sudanese operation, Islamic Insurance Company of Sudan, the IAC, the Islamic Arab Insurance Company, and then we went to the MI. They gave us the sample specimen of the Takaful certificate for family. The word Mudarabah was there. And then, of course, in our report, it is not of our Syarikat Takaful's baking. You know, when we started, hey, why you should? This is in the report. The report says that, number one, as I said earlier, Takaful can be established in Malaysia. So we are under the Takaful practice of, you know, the model of business, the participant will enjoy savings, will enjoy cover, but at the same time will also enjoy profit sharing if there is profit. But that profit can only be shared after the Takaful obligations have been honored. In other words, all payments of claim, if there are in the case of general or even in the family, then only we share.
Yeah, because the controversy came up from the fact that Mudarabah is profit sharing, whilst in Takaful, let's say general Takaful, you pay a contribution at tabaruk, then you pay claims, and what's left is not profit, it's surplus. But the definition of Mudarabah seems to cover surplus at that point of time. So I think, again, as I said, initially...
we discussed. So, but then they take the model, the structure of what we call as profit in insurance business.
Oh, okay. So you because of the fact that you refer to the insurance business, is part of the company's profit, is the surplus. And therefore you sort of go back that let's call that, let's refer to that as profit. Again, because of the fact that you were at that point of time just starting out Takaful. You were looking at the conventional business as a means of a model. And then in the conventional business, when they say profit, inclusive in that profit of the shareholders is also the surplus from the general insurance business. And therefore you infer from that maybe we can call that surplus as profit as well. And therefore Mudarabah can be used.
Because if you look at the account of the conventional insurance, number one, the total premium collected, pay claims, and then they add in investment profit. First, if you look at premium minus all the claims, minus the reinsurance, then if there is any balance, that is called surplus. Underwriting surplus.
Exactly.
And then they will add in investment profit. Then we say that is the total profit. So actually, in our case, we follow that model. We follow that definition.
I see.
But the only difference is that under the conventional, all the management expenses are charged to the fund. But under the Takaful, because of the fact that Mudarabah model, where according to Sharia, the Mudarib, the entrepreneur, the manager, cannot use the money or the Rasul Mal that were paid by the participant to pay for the expenses of the company. So we don't charge management expenses to the Takaful fund. So that is a big difference.
Yes.
So all expenses actually borne by the shareholders.
Yes.
So probably that was the reason why also, there was a big surplus.
As an actuary, I do understand, the success of the Takaful model initially. But going on that score, I think for our listeners, I think the fact that the operating model is the Mudarabah model, but one aspect of it which you just mentioned just now is the fact as well that you got the operator fund. Because there's the operator fund, and
there's
then
the shareholders fund.
That's basically the shareholders fund. And then you've got basically the policyholders fund or the participants fund.
Correct.
And then let's just look at general Takaful. That's a tabaruk fund.
Yes.
Effectively, and all expenses are charged to the operators fund.
Correct.
And then effectively, as far as the participants fund is concerned, that is not owned by the shareholders.
No.
This is unlike insurance, because insurance, basically in insurance, even though they might have an insurance fund, but the insurance fund belongs to the shareholders. It's just that for regulatory purposes, we have a separate fund. So I think the fundamental aspect here is the fact that, as far as Takaful is concerned, to some extent, it's like a mutual.
Correct.
in
You are right.
So here is basically where the policyholders basically, or the participants basically owns the fund. They share the risks,
Yes.
And the operator is just like a third-party administrator. They administer for the purpose of for the policyholders, for the participants, for which they receive some kind of remuneration.
Correct.
And here you're using the Mudarabah concept, whereby Mudarabah is effectively also encompass the surplus, any surplus arising from the Takaful. I think initially it was surplus sharing was 50-50, and the tabaruk fund
initially 50-50.
50-50.
50-50 was too strained on the shareholders.
Yes, and that's why I go back again to the fact that one of the beauty of Takaful initially, albeit it was accidental, was the fact that it was a composite, because the life side took some time to actually generate a surplus. Whilst the general side was able to do that regularly.
But I must explain also, even on number one, I think before we go into it deeper, we must make sure that the younger generation appreciate, because what my observation, I do not involved very much with Takaful, as you know, because of Asian one. But I could see sometime from social media that comments by the younger generation now, they seems to forget the whole concept of Takaful. I don't know.
Give an example, the comments that you see on social media.
Whether it is Islamic or not.
That one I know from the perspective of banking, in terms of profit and riba, with definition one and the other. There's a long discussion.
Of course, the other one is that whether wakalah, whether wakaf. But I mean, as I said, we people have been in the moon now, and we are still discussing about preparing the rocket to go there. I think we should improve on what we have rather than going back to the concept again. So that's what I noticed. And then of course they miss a lot of what I explained to you just now, the background of it, how it came about.
Yes.
You see, number one, I want to mention when we first started. As I said, the first year we didn't make money. It was a loss. It was 600,000 loss, if I can remember.
This is the respect of capital, which was 10 million.
10 million.
So you made nearly 10% was what they got.
Yeah, gone. And then in fact the board said to me, I remember, the board said to me, can you sustain this? If you're making loss again, I think we have to close the company. I remember the board said to me that, second year, alhamdulillah, we broke even. We broke even, and then the third year we wipe out the loss, and fourth year we paid the dividend. So but then right from first year we paid surplus, or we shared profit
from the first year onwards
with participant. Then they got confused. You declared loss.
Shareholders is a loss.
They don't understand it, because again we've
got two funds. They forgot.
Again, we saw it from the perspective or from the structure of conventional insurance.
Yes.
You declare loss, but then you pay profit to the participant. Which one is it? So I got to explain. There are two funds. The shareholders fund and the participants fund. Participant belong to participant. Got nothing to do with it. The shareholders or the operator doesn't even charge the expenses, as I said earlier. And then they understand.
Yeah, because that's the point as well that we need to emphasize the fact that if the participants fund does not generate a surplus, because of the fact that the operator shares in that surplus 50-50, the operator will get zero in terms of any income from the business. Because it's not like the Wakala model. Wakala model, you still get your Wakala fee. Under the initial Mudarabah model, your only income is from surplus sharing. So there's alignment, if you like, in terms of the policyholders or participants, and as well as with the operators, because operator is very much very much focused in trying to generate a surplus.
Yes.
Because no surplus, no income to the operator. So it's a very strict model in terms of the business model.
But management-wise also, we've got to be careful. As I said, Islam is the best method of management.
Yeah.
So in terms of underwriting, we've got to be careful.
Underwriting, because your alignment of interest.
We must make sure that, the way we handle it and claim, when we handle claim, it must be fair. But because of the attraction of the surplus, one thing during my days, if for example, motor vehicle, there happens to be a break of the windscreen, any windscreen brokerage and whatnot, most participants do not claim. What they do is that they try to calculate what is the cost of replacing a windscreen. During this time, it's not that expensive. They pay 1,200 contribution of premium, because that 1,200 we structure in such a way that we cover the windscreen as well, rather than a separate. So therefore, if the windscreen is broken, if I replace with the new one, it costs probably 250 ringgit. But then they recalculate, the profit sharing, the Mudarabah rate, if there is no claim, if I don't make any claim, last year was 25%, 27%. So I'll get 25% of what I paid, 1,002. So I don't claim. So that is an incentive on the part.
That's very, very important to understand. That the fact that there's always this sort of alignment in terms of what the operator wants to do and what the participants think what's beneficial to them. So they will not claim if they feel, because you only pay Mudarabah to the participants if he does not make a claim. So he needs to calculate, if he makes a claim, will the claim amount, be much lower than the surplus sharing?
Correct.
And that, in a way, as well helps the company.
Okay.
So there's alignment of interest. Yes. It's very important.
Yeah. Both the interest. It serves the both. Coming back to family.
Family. Yeah.
Our lab session. You are familiar with labs.
Very high.
What is lab? Please.
Basically, in family Retakaful, you have a long-term kind of policy contract, and initially all the expenses are incurred at the initial part of the contract. All right, which means that you cannot charge or you cannot recover your costs. In the first year, you recover your costs, i.e., the cost of managing the business over the duration of the contract. Therefore, if the policy were to lapse in the first 2-3 years, then the operator will make a loss because he will not have been able to recoup the initial expenses that they were incurred at the point of time that the policy was issued. So I think that's why it's very, very important, when you have a long-term contract, you try to preserve the contract for as long as possible, right? Because over that period in which the policy is active, there will be contribution going into the fund.
Yeah.
And then effectively, hopefully there will be surplus under the Mudarabah model in terms of the fund generating surplus. And from that, basically, you can recover your expenses. You have to amortize the cost, if you like, in terms of initially what you incur. Yeah. So at that point in time, I remember very, very long time ago, as a young actually, one of the major problems of our life insurance industry was the fact there were high lapses. And also the fact that the Insurance Act in Malaysia said that if you were to lapse the policy within the first 3 years, you don't get any surrender value. So basically, it's a lose-lose. The shareholders lose because of the fact that they're not able to recover the expenses.
Yeah.
The policyholders lose because of the fact that effectively they get nothing. They've paid premiums for 3 years and they get nothing when they surrender the policy. So there were lots of abuse as well in terms of how policies were sold. So yes, Dato.
Yeah.
What about
So
Takaful
you see,
Malaysia?
in the case of Takaful, it was different.
Yeah.
As I said, number one, the operating expense is not charged from the Takaful fund, the family Takaful fund.
Yeah.
We pay a very small commission. I don't want to call it commission. I forgot the name. We call it a marketing executive.
Okay.
Full-time marketing executive. We give them a floor salary, very small, and then we give them incentive. But the incentive coming from the shareholders fund. This is only, I remember, 3%. Only 3%. But again, because you explained to me just now, the high lapsation, the high loss ratio, the first 3 years.
Lapse rate, the high lapse rate.
High lapse rate. People surrender, people withdraw. Policyholders withdrew their policies very high during the first 3 years. So when we started Takaful, we must not do that. Because from the perspective of Islam, it is not proper. Because when you surrender like that, I mean, you know pretty well from the calculation, there is no money to be paid to the policyholder. So if Takaful is introduced, we must try to avoid that. So that was the reason we don't charge expenses on what do you call?
The participants fund, Tabaruk fund.
The Tabaruk fund. And then of course, in the case of family, we split Tabaruk against investment.
Yeah, there's another fund, investment fund.
Okay, anyway. But anyway, doing that, we noticed that, and there is no sort of forced selling. The way we sell, we say that at that time, looking back, because as you said, we wanted to try something very small number of value of, if I can use the term policy. It's in the fixed period of participation. But the lab session, I remember, only 3%. And participants who really withdrew because of the fact that, they need the money because something. They lost the job. Then they went to further studies and whatnot. Only 3%. And with that 3% also commission paid. I remember, on average, our marketing executive, family marketing executive, could bring in 30 certificates or 30 participants a month. As compared to, I remember, it's international sort of benchmark. I attended
3 or 4.
6. So in our case,
30.
And then there are some marketing young executive married 2 wives.
2 wives. Because they got more income.
More income. So, but I think, I don't know whether...
No, I think that the point as well, because in the earlier Takaful, there are a couple of things as well that perhaps, what the viewers, who are not in Malaysia or who are young, who are maybe not been born at that point of time, should also understand. Effectively, at that point in time, Malaysia's insurance market was still very much in its infancy. There were not many professionals in the industry. The general insurance industry was very much, having problems in terms of, premiums not being collected, and claims being very high because of fraud, And then in terms of family, in terms of life insurance policies, there were high lapses because of the fact that commissions are very high. You mentioned that 3% was a commission that as a fee that the executives actually collect, when they sell a product, 3% of contribution. But at that point of time, commission in the first year could be like 70-80%.
Yep.
So effectively, people will actually pressure selling the products. Of course, when you pressure sell the products, you get the commission. After the fact that after a certain point of time, when there's no more commission being payable, after the third year, for example, no more commissions or very little commissions being paid, then effectively they convince the policyholder to buy another policy. So effectively, the insurance company loses because they can't recover its expenses. The policyholders also lose as well because they get nothing after paying three years worth of premium, no surrender value. The first 3 years there was no surrender value. But if I remember, I recall at that point of time as well, that one of the things that also was actually quite evident at that point of time was that the contribution on the general insurance side, the motor side, that Takaful Malaysia was charging was pretty high as compared to conventional. And the loss ratio, because I was actually at the point of time, was very good. So basically, it was a combination of two. Okay, the contributions were relatively high, and then perhaps as well, it could be that the policyholders were people say, I want to buy Takaful regardless of the fact that the contributions is higher, maybe 50% more than conventional, because I believe in it. So these are a certain select group of Muslims who basically might not even think about doing fraud. Well, this is at that early part of it. And the other thing as well is the fact that you were the only Takaful company for nearly 10 years.
Yes, you're right. Yes.
Because one of the problems that we see is that when they got too many Takaful companies, is that people lose the concept of the fact that this is a solidarity, and it's being sold more like conventional, whereby effectively you go on price. So when you go on price, you have a problem. So we'll talk a bit about the evolution of Takaful, but let's just those early years. Now we talk about the fact that the idea of family Takaful was born, and the reason why you call it family Takaful. The reinsurance, because at that point in time there was no Retakaful.
Well, of course, reinsurance is very important. Very important. When we do a business of insurance, we need reinsurance. So that was the key message that we passed to the Sharia. It is a must. You cannot survive without that. But at the moment, at that time, there is none.
Zero.
Zero.
No Retakaful.
So how do we go? How do we do it? Of course, they wanted to know how the procedure and whatnot. We explained to them. Then, of course, they said you can use the conventional reinsurance with certain conditions, with certain modifications. For example, we reinsure or we Retakaful based on net basis. Because
risk basis.
Risk basis, correct. From the perspective, risk basis.
Risk basis only.
So in other words, we don't earn commission from the reinsurer.
Because we're not sure where the income
comes from. Yes, but I can't remember. Those are the key things that I remember. But again, I hope that that kind of thinking among some of Muslims, including ulama and whatnot, like I used to face before. I remember I went to South Africa. I explained to a group of Muslim scholars. And then one of them asked me, it's a very senior guy, he said, how can you call yourself Islamic when that part of the transaction is not Islamic compliant?
There's the reinsurance.
The reinsurance. So, I was lost for word at the time, and out of spontaneously I said, the problem with us is that we know only how to criticize. But I throw the challenge to you as a ulama. Can you solve for us? So I hope, in the present, society now, among Muslims, there are no more people like that, I hope. We have
I think it's important that you have that discourse, because, then you understand, what are the issues that they feel that it's important to highlight and therefore talk through. But again, I go back to this concept that we need to have Islamic insurance, or we need to have Takaful. Basically, it's a case of whether we have everything perfect from day one, or we try and evolve the business as we go along. Of course, the critics would say, how long do you need to evolve? Takaful has been around 40 years now in Malaysia, right? 40 years in Malaysia.
You're right.
So, why are we still basically maybe still using reinsurance, for example? Why have we not moved on? But that is a separate discussion. I think that the point here is that at the initial years in which Takaful was established, you had these challenges.
No, I think we look at the other way. First, all Muslims, individuals, as well as corporate bodies, must support by using Takaful. Then only we will be able to establish a proper Retakaful. I must say that there have been a number of Retakaful institutions established in the Middle East. I don't want to mention names. Unfortunately, half the way, they closed down because of business. And number one, as I understood it at that time, they said that after 15, 20 years of business, they closed down.
Yes.
Because number one, they said not enough business from the Islamic what do you call, from the real Takaful sector.
Yeah.
So we have to rely on conventional. So they even accepted business from conventional insurance
To make it viable.
to make it viable. So I mean, simply because of the fact that Muslims do not come in big number to use Takaful services. I think if all Muslim first with the objective of to ensure that the business of Takaful, according to the Sharia way of doing things, must be supported, must grow, then everybody should participate in it. Then only the eggs can grow bigger. So
No, I think you raise a very important point because, the whole how insurance work is by pooling. You get a group of people together, you create a pool, and because you have the fact that you've got the pool, you can actually share the risk. But the thing is that if you have a bigger when the amount that's covered gets bigger and bigger, you need a much bigger pool per se. So that's the point that you're actually trying to highlight, Dato, is that in order for Retakaful to work, you must have the numbers. If you do not have the numbers, then effectively, it will not work. Because one claim might wipe up all the surplus in the pool per se. So this is something which is fundamental. The question of how you actually structure your Retakaful business, and also maybe how patient the shareholders are. Because even for Takaful Malaysia, even at the board level, after the first year, there were doubts. So it goes back to this issue about the fact that the business aspect of Takaful.
Of course.
Where effectively we can actually satisfy the concept of a mutual, whereby risk sharing. And the concept of tijari or business, this is business.
As long as Takaful operates within the tijari sector, then of course we cannot escape from this. So unless we have a big wakaf somewhere.
Wakaf, I said
probably there's a different
something
subject.
We have to talk about. Yeah,
but I think probably looking back, we have to thank the authority, the government.
Yes,
I think Malaysia was smart enough, if I could use the term that.
Terminology.
I mean, the vision was there. Right from day one, when we started, we have the act.
The Takaful Act.
The Takaful
The regulations.
Act. The regulation. The legislative framework is very important.
Yeah.
Because number one, Takaful, whether it is Islamic or whatever, it is still the trusteeship. That the principle of trust, the concept of trustee is there. So though anything to do with trust, holding money, holding assets of the public must be regulated. So but because I was after my retirement, or even during only working, I had the opportunity to be involved in the advance in the establishment of Takaful outside Malaysia.
Yeah, that's something that we're going to discuss now. Why do you want to go overseas in the first place? It was something that...
Number one, of course, to propagate the idea. So the propagate idea is that to ensure that there is a Retakaful that can be... Okay, that's very important.
So that's what for Retakaful to exist, you must have Takaful companies in many countries.
Right. So we started, if I mentioned about Retakaful, we started in a small way. You remember Ariel?
Ariel, yeah.
Labuan. Very small, but anyway. So first, I was approached by Brunei. So we went to Brunei. We trained the potential staff because essentially Brunei, all run by small country, run by civil servants. So they were seconded to run the Takaful company there. So we trained them for 3 months. Solid. Our staff was there for 3 months. Trained them. I was told 10 years ago, I have lost contact with them. 10 years ago, I was told that they captured 30% of the market in Brunei.
Yeah, but 34.
Still.
They're the leaders.
Then I went to Indonesia. So Indonesia was a very interesting story.
Challenging.
A lot of challenge. They came over to see me. They formed what they call as very good acronym, TEPATI, Tim Pembentukan Takaful Indonesia. TEPATI. TEPATI means the team to establish Takaful in Indonesia, essentially. So they came. So eventually they said, I need your help. So we established Takaful. Then I think after 6-7 years, then came the Asian financial crisis, of which, the rupiah went down so much, then, the value of the shares almost zero. So we helped them, we rescued them, we took control of them. Alhamdulillah, then I understand now there are a number of Takaful companies over there.
Yeah.
But looking back, I was Jakarta recently, met old friends there. I'm still not quite happy in the sense that the penetration rate is very small.
Yes, very small.
Still very small, despite the fact that it's huge. The potential
Muslim
is huge.
country.
I also have Singapore in a small way. I remember Capel Insurance at the time, they wanted to establish. But unfortunately, because there was some structure of the company bought over by another party, so the Takaful in Singapore somehow rather disappeared away. And then I also have established in Bangladesh, in Pakistan, and few other African countries.
Don't forget Sri Lanka.
Of course, Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka. I was on a board for many years. And Maldives. See, the unfortunate part, they don't have the law. Even in Sri Lanka, even in Maldives. Maldives now is a Muslim country, 90%. They are talking about having the law now. I mean, you are talking about 40, 30 years now. So, I mean, they should have the law.
At the beginning.
Yeah, at the beginning. So that will put the structure on the same footing like the convention. And then, I mean, to the public, there must be confidence.
Yeah.
And how can you have the integrity and confidence if there is no similar framework, legal framework, to control you as compared to conventional? So I think we thank the government of Malaysia right from day one.
So those forays that you went overseas, was that actually driven G to G, i.e. the government of Brunei rang up the government of Malaysia and says, we want Takaful, please send along Dato Fadzli?
No.
How was it? How was it? Because
in the case of Brunei, I was still working at that time. In the case of Brunei, they had a contact with Bank Islam. So they were also having a Islamic Bank, Brunei. So they wanted to establish this Takaful. So of course, the bank, we are part of Bank Islam Group. Then they contacted us, so we went. Indonesia, the same thing through Bank Muamalat. But in Sri Lanka, actually, they contacted us first. But after that, it was after I have retired. After retired, I think they knew my experience. Then they tried to get, and then with collaboration of colleagues, former colleagues working with Takaful and whatnot. So we have them. And alhamdulillah, many are doing quite well. In Gambia are doing well. In Nigeria are doing well. So
but during the days you were in Takaful Malaysia, you did take equity share in those companies, didn't you?
Some. But the consideration was this. Are they, because we went to help. So there must be a kind of consideration for them to pay a kind of fee.
Yeah.
So instead of a fee, they said, why don't we give you free share to you?
Free share.
Free share. So, coming back to the Retakaful. First, during my days, I established what we call ASEAN Takaful Group. So when we have Takaful in Brunei, when we have Takaful in Indonesia, so in order to harness a good cooperation, so why don't we form a group? So we call it ATG. So we have annual meeting. So at one of the meetings, annual meetings, the idea of forming a Takaful pool in the actual fact started. That's why we established ARIL, because that was during the financial crisis, 1987 or something like that.
Yeah.
So not many parties would want to put money, and in fact we didn't comply 10 million. We sort of sought the kind consideration of the minister at that time, to allow us
a lower capital.
But we give some form of guarantee or something like that.
Yeah.
But rather than putting money, they allow. But alhamdulillah, we used the Mudarabah concept as well, and we got support. But of course, at that time, the number of Takaful all over the world was very small.
But was Ariel just on the family Takaful, or did
No, both as well.
Both. yeah. That's.
And it was not the loss. It was making money. It was too small.
Yeah. Okay, so that's I mean, we've covered a lot.
Oh, I think that's covered. We have covered all.
No, we've not covered all yet. We're not there yet. We're not there yet, because that, if you like, is the start of Takaful. I mean, you've been in the Takaful industry for many years, But I think one of the things that our viewers might want to actually appreciate is that, sometimes, when you talk about Takaful, the non-Muslims overseas, they might have the perception that this is only for Muslims. Yeah. So, I mean, do you see you had that issue?
Initially, that was also the perception in Malaysia. The non-Muslims shy off. They asked, but when you explain, but I personally was involved in briefing a group of corporate treasurers, non-Muslim. I don't want to mention the name of the group.
Yeah.
I explained to him what Takaful is all about, how it operates, and then immediately, upon the expiry of the existing policies that they have, they came to us.
Yeah. I think there was certain attraction of Takaful.
So you see, the thing is only, I think it is our fault.
Yeah.
I may say our fault, maybe it's our fault for not opening enough to go out, and promote it, explain it to all. We were concentrating only to Muslims at that time. Yeah. Probably it was right, because it was the Muslim, the first target. But looking back now, we should have been more active towards promoting.
Yeah. Again, for the viewers, in Malaysia, only about 60% of the population are Muslims.
Yes, correct.
So you cannot ignore the 40% of the population who are non-Muslims.
Right.
And that's very important.
But I would like to add, at that time, we were panels to a number of banks.
Yeah.
I remember at that time, I can mention the bank because the banks no more existed. I used to work in that bank, Bank Bumi Putra.
Yeah.
The Bank Bumi Putra, first at that time, for their clients on housing loan, they opened to banks. We are on the panel. For if for example, a person borrowing money to buy a house, public from Bank Bumi at that time, then you can use Takaful or any other insurance companies. But for the staff loan, they said only to Takaful Malaysia. Staff loan, staff housing loan, the insurance part, both mortgage as well as the fire insurance, only with Takaful Malaysia. And then there are a number of non-Muslims. So when they saw, the experience that there is a profit sharing and whatnot, and then the way we handle it, assets, the other properties also, not part of the bank, they transferred to us. I remember. So again, as I said, it's a matter of promoting. Da'wah is very important.
Yeah.
Propagation is important.
Explaining.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I mean, I think we can move on now to the present day. Yeah, because I mean, you have been in industry from the beginning, and I came in maybe slightly later after you, right? So we are basically veterans, all right? So from the perspective of the development of Takaful, and I think things have changed a lot. I think initially when you started Takaful Malaysia, there was only one Takaful company, and you had room basically to develop the business, and the government played a very important part in terms of putting the regulation in place, in terms of promoting Islamic finance. I think we cannot understate the role of government in terms of ensuring that the Islamic finance industry in Malaysia succeeded. I think that was one of the important objective, if you like, in terms of government of Malaysia. And also the fact that because of that, we are seen as a leader in Islamic finance. But over the years, from one Takaful company, we now have like a dozen family Takaful companies. By the way, now there's no more composite. We have to have family Takaful or general Takaful. We now have about 4 general Takaful company. But I mean, from the perspective of from your perspective, I mean, I know you're no longer very active in terms of the Takaful industry, but I'm sure you still got friends in the Takaful industry. In fact, I mean, many of your, if you like, the people who are working in Takaful Malaysia in your early days, sort of later on went to actually set up, or not to set up, to basically lead Takaful companies on their own, basically. So, in fact, Takaful Malaysia as well was a training ground for Takaful. I think one aspect that we cannot understate is the fact that, it's very important that when you go into Takaful, you have a different mindset in terms of Takaful. We cannot think of Takaful like insurance. The concept of Takaful is different from insurance, and therefore it's so important that, you have that training whereby you understand the difference between Takaful and insurance. But going back to the present time, in terms of your, as an observer, anything that you like to highlight in terms of, the industry now, 40 years now after you started this business?
Well, I noticed that not many people talking about Takaful now.
Not many people in the
public.
In the public.
The public. I got a lot of friends, but never asked about Takaful anymore. But one or two comments that came to me is that it seems there is no difference between Takaful and insurance. That's what the common comment.
That's a very important observation. It goes back to what you mentioned just now in terms of what people say in social media. I mean, maybe, in the back of my mind, I struggle with this, actually. I also struggle with this in terms of trying to, differentiate to the observer the difference between Takaful and insurance. Because of the fact that, they come from the perspective of understanding Islamic banking. And as you know, in terms of Islamic banking, there's always been this concern about, is Islamic banking really Islamic? It's just changing our nomenclature. Instead of calling it interest, you call it, profit. And the way in which, when you open up an account, and the profit rate that you get is to some extent, very similar to what you have for insurance. And when you go and to borrow money, the amount of money that you pay in terms of installment is not far different from that what you pay for insurance, for conventional. So I get the feeling that they come from that kind of mindset, because Islamic banking is much bigger than Takaful.
Yeah, correct.
But sure. the thing is that Takaful is actually different, and this is something very difficult to get through because of that kind of idea that they already have for Islamic banking.
Probably we want to be more clever than the scholars. Probably, I hope it is not that phenomenon.
Okay.
But we lot of comment, as if we know more than the scholars.
No, I think that's maybe because you have had a long experience with scholars, right? And I think for the benefit of our viewers, I think it's important. How is it when you interact with scholars? How do they approach this kind of challenges?
Okay.
Because it's very important, because for the man in the street, they have a different kind of input, if you like, and therefore based on that input, they make up your mind. But because trying to come up with a kind of a fatwa is a very heavy responsibility.
But I must admit that my interaction is not as wide. It is. Although I was 22 years, I was in the industry, and then. In respect of Takaful, we met every 3 months at least, before. Or if there are any issues, media issues, then we go to see them. We prepare paper. We have to prepare paper. But they will not make a decision if the issue is still uncertain, not very clear, not real straight black and white. They will not make a decision immediately. That's beautiful. They'll think about it, make reference. Then only they will make a decision.
But who do they ask in terms of input? I mean, would there be a sort of...
They have the books, they have the kitab.
Yeah, but in terms the kitab I understand, but from perspective, the technical aspect of it, who actually provide them with the technical input?
Oh, the technical aspect, of course, we are working, we form. There is a group among us, the senior people. We'll meet with them, explain to them, we'll draw the diagram, how it works. Then it shows. But I must admit that their understanding, their comprehension is quite fast. Don't try to underrate their intelligence. they understood quite fast. And then only they make a decision. And their decision is, you realize it's quite correct. I mean, it's quite correct.
Yeah.
So I think it is, but of course, probably we come back to the business model. You know, when we first started, there is a physical profit sharing that people enjoy. But now under the new model of business, which is more or less like insurance, some even share, some does not share. So I think that is confusing a lot. If you ask me, I would say, Malaysia, we should stick to the earlier model. We champion that. And then, of course, we compete on service. I think, going back, I think why we became a sort of source of reference for many, from my experience, because they came to see me during those days, is the fact that, number one, we have, as I said, the legal aspect, proper legislative framework and whatnot, so that gave confidence. But number two, the what do you call the unique feature of our business model at that time. I mean, we were, as you know, we were skeptical whether, you know, in insurance business we can dish out, share out profit or surplus or not.
I think the issue there, you know, from a technical perspective, you know, if I can give my sort of perspective on this as an actuary, is the fact that, you know, a couple of things. One, I think that is the fact that currently the competition in terms of Takaful product now is not just, it's not much service as price, because that's what effectively the consumer is looking for. The consumer go on the basis of, okay, you know, I got 5 Takaful companies that I am considering now, which will give me the better price, and they want price and they want surplus as well. So that is in a way contradictory, because surplus comes from the fact that, you know, the claims that you incur in any one year, you know, is lower than what you expect. So effectively, you have surplus, and you can share that surplus to the participants. But if basically you're already competing on price, then, you know, the surplus that actually you can expect becomes smaller, because now you don't have as much margin, if you like, you know, because we know from history, if you like, you know, what kind of loss experience you're going to get, you know, based on statistics. So by right, you know, you should price at least to cover those losses, and then perhaps do a bit more in order that you can actually surplus share. But because of competition, you know, it becomes a bit difficult to actually to price your product to provide for that kind of surplus. Now, so now what we see is that in certain instances as well, you know, what you have is that the consumer is offered, okay, this is a mortgage product, for example, mortgage reducing term product. This is conventional. This is Takaful. The price is the same. Which one do you want? You know, so you know, in a way, maybe we have a problem there. You know, because we want to have our cake and eat it as well. We want it to be. You know, we want it to be such that, you know, it is surplus generating, but at the same time you want it to be cheap.
But I think the key thing, this is my observation. I think the generation now, I'm not trying to criticize them. I'm not trying to downgrade them. Number one, young people now, they want early gratification. All right, you know, they want because of social media and whatnot. And all these are all the effects. They want early, so you cannot get something quickly. You know, you have to work for it. Number two, I think the effort, the aspiration to enrich knowledge is not that prominent now. Okay, so, you know, this is an evolution. New things coming. You have to learn. So, but if you miss or you don't understood the basic concept earlier, how could you move forward? So I think, as we discussed earlier, the present generation of those involved in Takaful, I don't think they fully understood and appreciate the whole concept of Takaful.
The difference between Takaful
Correct.
and
Correct. And then
insurance.
why Takaful in the first place was introduced? Why? I don't think they understood that. As you said just now, it happened in the bank. I remember when I was working. You know, during those days, unfortunately or fortunately, it did not happen. It did not take place in the Takaful sector, whereby windows were allowed.
Oh yeah, Takaful windows. Banking windows.
Oh, government said 10 years. Alhamdulillah. So you see, I remember because I was approached by banker. They all working in the same under one umbrella, you know. So I explained to you like you explained to me. This is structure for Islamic financing. This is, you know, explained in detail. Then, but this is the conventional. So please choose. So, you know, I think luckily it did not happen in Takaful. But if you do not understand, if you don't have the full knowledge, the background, the deeper inner understanding of what Takaful is about, then it becomes like that. So I think it is important for the young generation, the Takaful operators here, to ensure. I notice now that training is not, I notice there is hardly any training now on Takaful. Hardly anything, because I organized one a few months ago, you know, with the help of friends from overseas. And the feedback that we got from them, that's very good. It's very good.
Nobody told me about this before.
Yeah. And I was not one of the facilitators, one of the speakers.
Yeah.
I just helped them to do it. We brought them from overseas, and they appreciated it very much.
So, nobody told them about it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Well, this is very serious because because if and this is the reason as well whereby Dato, you know, we thought that we should, you know, have this session, you know, to talk to the pioneers and to understand basically, you know, what actually, how Takaful was initiated, basically what were the challenges that they faced, you know, because we do see generally that, you know, now it becomes a case of the differentiation is more like, is Islamic or non-Islamic, but otherwise everything is the same.
Correct.
Yeah,
right.
Which means that, you know, in terms of understanding the difference between an Islamic product and non-Islamic product is been relegated, you know. And because of that, and the younger generations now are smart people. I mean, you know, maybe they might not be as maybe you can be a bit lazy. I can use the word, you know.
I said, they want early gratification.
They want early gratification. So that maybe, you know, they don't want to read too much and to understand, you know, why like it is. You know, they see the product, they make a comparison. Yeah, it's the same in conventional, right? Without understanding deeper in terms of, you know, okay, the difference maybe in terms of, you know, if you will wind up basically a conventional company. You know, any surpluses all go to the shareholders.
Yeah.
You wind up a Takaful company, no. You know, shareholders will not get any share in terms of the surplus in the Takaful fund, because that Takaful fund basically belongs to the participants. So that's one difference in terms of winding up. You know, and the fact that effectively, for as far as insurance is concerned, you know, it's a promise. You pay the premium to the operator, to the insurance company. That premium belongs to the insurance company.
Yeah.
Whether you have insurance fund or no insurance fund, it belongs to the insurance company. In return, you get a promise. Yeah. So the insurance company is taking a risk, a speculative risk. It might make money, it might make a loss. But in Takaful, basically, you know, it's risk sharing, and you have got a separate pool for that. So this kind of understanding the difference in Takaful insurance, even though basically maybe the difference that they see outwardly is just the fact that, you know, in insurance you don't get surplus, in Takaful you get surplus. Maybe it's the only thing that they are focused on.
Correct.
But they don't understand the Islamic aspect of it, you know. But the thing is that, you know, how to actually convey this kind of information to the younger people in a way in which, you know, they appreciate it. So that is a challenge that we have.
You have to go to basic. You read during those days.
Yeah.
We have. I used to do. I was involved in it.
Yeah.
We gave a khutbah for Friday prayer. The masjid allowed me to give khutbah.
A khutbah. Yeah.
Khutbah on Takaful.
Yeah.
But now, and then I have not come across in the mosque or anywhere, a scholar coming out to talk about takaful. Now, no.
I think you also went on TV many times, kan?
During those days, yes, of
radio
course.
programs.
Radio program we had.
TV
And
as well.
I had a column in Business Time before. I wrote. So to explain. But now, no more. So it becomes like a normal business, ordinary insurance. So you have to go back to basic. Go back. I mean, as I said earlier, propagation has to be ongoing.
Yeah, but I there's another extreme actually, because I do work for overseas sometimes, and I get this question in one of my session that a person would ask, I mean, what's in terms of takaful basically, why do you need to charge this premium? Why don't you just provide it for free? And I had to mention to the person that this is actually a business, all right? And effectively, when you have a takaful pool, you want to make sure that you have sufficient money to pay the claims, and that's where the technical aspect of it comes along. Now, if you bring more risk to the pool, you have to pay a higher tabarruk. And I said that what you're thinking of, it has zakat. The zakat is basically based on your wealth. So if you are actually a percentage of your wealth, so basically if you are a rich guy, you pay more zakat. If you're poor, you don't pay zakat, and that money you can use for charity. The takaful is not charity, Takaful is a means of sharing a risk. And another point I should make a point is that don't think of tabarruk basically as a contribution.
Be used by others.
Yeah, no. Because if you do that, they say, I pay tabarruk, I get nothing back. You see. But the whole idea here is that the tabarruk is to share the people who are misfortune. They have something happen to them.
So the intention is important.
Intention is important.
The intention. That's the Islamic.
That's the Islamic aspect. Yeah. I mean, we know in Islam, basically, effectively, the effort is what we get rewarded for. Whether our effort is successful or not, that's Allah Subhanahu wa Taala to decide.
Yeah. So in this report, it all mentioned the niyat is important. Why? So during those days, we propagated that, but now no more. There's now. Even books written on takaful, there's no mention about that.
The niyat.
The niyat. The whole concept. Why? From the Islamic perspective. Of course, as a non-Muslim, they supported us, as I said, because they said, I will support this. Because in case something happened to me, you're going to pay the claim. If there is no claim, then I'll get the surplus. So that's from the perspective of non-Muslim. But as Muslim, it is deeper than that. Of course, you benefit materially, but at the same time, if you don't, then there is the pahala, the virtue.
The fact that the tabarruk you put in the pool has been used to assist someone who are misfortunate.
Yes.
I think that is basically the niyat should be that.
Correct.
Not the niyat should be give the tabarruk, now I want something back.
No.
That is not that.
Yes,
that should not be the case. But whether that kind of perception is there or not for takaful participants these days is up to discuss.
Sure. But I think it is on the part of the takaful operators to ensure that message be passed to the public. So the process of education cannot be stopped. It has to go.
Okay.
I mean, the whole concept of Islamic economy, apart from trust, is giving away, donation. In fact, that's the whole concept. To help others. If you look at the concept of Islamic economy, in the form of the concept is that to help others. Apart from I'm not to let the word it says to make sure that we are all right, enriching ourselves, if I can use that term. But at the same time, it is also our obligation to help others. It is not only for us. So that sort of message should be passed through strongly. So I think that is missing now.
Okay.
That is missing now. During those days, that's what we did.
There was a niyat. There was basically what drove the initial pioneers.
Yes. So now you see the thing is problem. When you look at it, you look at the whole process. As the economy, Islamic economy actually is conceptually is based on sadaqah, giving. But we try to compartmentalize. When come to business, that sadaqah is not there. Sadaqah only you go to the mosque. you give to zakat.
Separation.
You know pretty well, zakat is of different concept, of different structure, and zakat has its own asnaf, who you can distribute it. You cannot use the zakat money to help anybody.
There's a
there is the 8 asnaf there is clearly stated. So so we try to mix. This is where we mix Islam and socialism. Probably we try to put socialist idea into Islam. I think to me that's not correct.
Yeah.
So our understanding also must make sure that it is correct.
Yeah. I'm coming to the end of the session, but I think I would like to actually end it by just going through certain key aspects in terms of Takaful going forward, right? In terms of how to actually develop it, because recently, there are more and more Islamic countries looking at Takaful, and they look at Malaysia as the model. So, what would you advise, with a country X who wants to start up Takaful? What should they do? Learning from Malaysia's experience, learning from your experience in terms of starting Takaful in Malaysia, what would be the 5 points that that they need to do, maybe in order of how they should proceed?
Number one, we must a clear policy that the authority must allow Islamic financial sector, in the case of Takaful in particular, to go out. If there is a party outside, asking for help to establish Takaful, then that should be allowed. Either they can participate in the form of shareholders.
This is for Malaysian to
yes,
go
for
out.
Malaysia.
But I think I would just sort of modify my questions a bit more, because I think that the issue about Malaysian Takaful companies wanting to go overseas, I think it is something that it is no longer, I think, something that priority.
Because so that's why I said there must be a clear policy by the authority. And then if there is a policy, if it is encouraged by the authority, then of course the respective Takaful operators would then easy for them to cast their own policy. But without a clear policy at the top, then how can?
Well, but the point you can argue is that shareholders are now looking at. So it goes back to the fact it's tijari now. Effectively, the Takaful business is profit driven.
I understand because of the fact that there are certain policies here that you must make sure that your business is making profitable. So you tend to neglect or forget what you call the ventures outside. See. Because I know I have experienced that.
I think the point you're trying to make here, Dato, is the fact that we should share our experience overseas, and the fact that if there's a company out there, a country out there who wants to establish Takaful, and your experience, I know this because we've discussed this before, is that you actually help to put Malaysians who've got experience in Takaful to go to that country to actually assist in terms of setting up the infrastructure. And it goes back to the fact that you need to be able to prioritize how this operation should actually start, because you cannot simply just say, okay, I set up shop tomorrow, and instead of ABC company, I call it ABC Takaful, and everything else is just copy from conventional. It does not work, So that's why you say you are the view that we should share our experience overseas.
Yes.
So that goes back to what you had experienced.
I give you an example.
Yeah.
This happened recently. I don't want to mention the country. I went to that country in June. This June. 6 months ago. About 6 months ago. They wanted to establish Takaful, and I was asked by the party somewhere to look whether it is going to be feasible or not. So again, I was concerned going to a country which you do not know. You have the due diligence, country risk and whatnot. This is in one of the CIS countries, former CIS countries. I don't want to mention the name. But they do not know. They knew a little bit, but in depth they do not know. I said Malaysia would be able to help you. So one of the, as I mentioned earlier, one of the credible moves taken by Malaysia was to have a proper legislative. So for you to do it, because I met the regulator, I had a discussion with the regulator, I said, I would not recommend any party to establish takaful operation in your country. Okay, even it is going to be controlled by your shareholder, local shareholder here. But I would not encourage or recommend a party outside if you don't have a proper legal framework. Yeah. So they say, we are going. Then, but where can we refer? I said, you go to Malaysia. So what I'm saying is that Malaysia should be proactively promote that. You know, we can help you. We are a small country. What else can we do? We cannot be a superpower in terms of military. So we do this. We do this, but there must be a clear policy. There must be a clear from the authority.
Yeah.
That Malaysia want to export Islamic finance. We want to export. So that then only we can be proud. Oh, Malaysia, this is the model developed by Malaysia. Use.
Yeah, I have my doubts that the couple companies in Malaysia will be keen to do that, given their shareholding structure.
Honestly, I've been approached. I'm as you said, I do not dare to approach any of the takaful operators here, or that matter banks, to help the party outside if they want a technical partner. You know, sometimes they want a technical partner, they don't want to even share. We have enough money, but we don't have the expertise. But I don't dare even match them.
No. But I think first thing is that regulation is important, right? Secondly, perhaps in terms of how you actually go about establishing the takaful industry. I mean, you need to have Islamic banks in the first place. You need to have basically investments that are suitable for the takaful company to invest in. But the third thing perhaps is the training, and that's where it's important to actually be able to provide the kind of training.
But can you look, if you look around in Malaysia, is there any body that provide training for takaful now?
Well, we got
I don't mention names.
Yeah, we got institutions. We got institutions is basically that provide training, but I think that maybe it is not as structured as perhaps it should be, because I think in any training you must have some kind of syllabus in terms of how you want to approach it. So maybe in terms of insurance is more established, but maybe in terms of takaful is not so established because it is dwarfed perhaps by the Islamic banks. The bank is much bigger than takaful per se. So we need to address that.
But I think the need is still there. Because I mentioned to you, we help. The need is there. But I think perhaps the focus by the institution concerned has gone. But you are right. So, for example, I give you just now a scenario where we have been approached by outside parties. This is not only takaful. This is also Islamic banking, because my group comprising of ex-bankers, Islamic bankers as well, pioneers of Islamic bankers also, willing to help. But when we discuss, we do not dare approach any of the institution here, because as you said, the policy is different. I mean, I'm not blaming the banks or the takaful operators here. If at all, there must be a policy, a clear guideline, from the authority. If there is a master plan, used to have master plan. Why not one of the objectives of master plan include this?
Yeah, I can understand. Okay. And the other thing as well, I think goes back to this financial education. That people that you need to have an awareness among the Muslims that they need to also be prepared for the unexpected. All right. So that means savings. Making sure it's savings, making sure that your assets are protected.
Yes.
So this kind of financial education perhaps is still lacking as well. The awareness, if you like, among the Muslims. So you need this awareness because, like insurance, takaful is not bought; it's sold. You need to explain about what takaful is all about. And telling people about insurance is difficult enough. But takaful more difficult.
Really understand it? Insurance is bought. Takaful is bought, not more sold. The need is that we have to come to that stage. That takaful is so important. So I agree 100% with you just in terms of educating. But then the elements of the Sharia must be put in there. Because, there are scholars who say Allah.
Everything will provide. But that's the wrong way to look at it.
If there is something happen to you, no. I mean, where is our ikhtiyar?
Exam must be there.
So
Effort.
Islam said you must endeavor first.
Endeavor first. And then leave it to Allah.
Then leave Allah. And then only you supplicate to Allah.
You supplicate to Allah. I think the fifth one, perhaps more important aspect of it as well, is the support from the regulators. The government.
That's what I said earlier.
The government
must be a clear policy.
Yeah, but here also from the perspective that the government in Malaysia has always sort of promoted Islamic finance. So maybe in terms of deposit, for example, the government put their money in the Islamic banks.
We are talking in the context of promoting Islamic finance outside Malaysia.
Outside Malaysia.
Yeah.
So, but to learn from Malaysia.
Yeah. So you see, we export our knowledge,
our experience,
experience. Yeah. But that is no more, because during those days when I started, I informed the regulator. Yeah. Then they say you go ahead. Yeah. But I don't see now. I don't see now. I don't know. Yeah. Because probably what you were saying just now, because of the the business pressure. You have to perform here. Of course, the KPIs and whatnot.
All KPIs. Now everything. Focus of management is making profit.
So we have to sort of compromise. To promote. A lot of compromises.
We're trying to say that we can have both. We can have, not so much. The profit will not be the same, because this is something as well that I always emphasize to people who want to go to Takaful. You cannot expect the same kind of profit margins that you have in Takaful, in insurance that you have in Takaful, because in Takaful is sharing of profits. Yeah.
But in the final analysis, it can be done. In what form and what shape, that one we leave it to the we leave to the party concerned. But the objective must be clear. Do we want to export our knowledge, our experience? So if we have a clear objective on that, a clear message on that, I think
inshallah,
the ingenuity of the individual players will carve their own way.
The last question, we're running out of time. What advice would you give to those interested in starting a career in Takaful? Because we are now towards the end of our career. All right, you and me.
I'm not aspiring for any career anymore.
No, how we advise those people who are young people?
Knowledge is very important.
Aspire to Takaful.
Yes, you must equip yourself with knowledge. Number one. Number two, you must be honest. And work hard. You have to work hard. Don't try to go for, as I said, early reward. Reward will come in if you work hard, your tenacity, and you enrich your knowledge. Because eventually, with the technology and whatnot, the whole process of working will be different. So for example, now, as you said, you've been working from home now. So people can't imagine working from home during those days. Either you are lazy or play through it. If you say working from home, but now it's a normal thing. So I think in the case of those who seeking what they call career in Takaful, knowledge is important. Knowledge, technical knowledge, as well as the Sharia.
That's very, very important. I think you need to emphasize that in the sense that you need to have not just the technical knowledge but also the Sharia knowledge. Because in the past, look at our the early years of Islam. We were basically the forefront of science. And these people who are forefront of science, they actually build on the knowledge that the Quran provides, the Sunnah provides. And there is that close connection between the technical aspects and the Sharia aspects, as it were. But now, like most things, is separated. You have Sharia scholars who are basically more Sharia compartmentalized.
So again, I just to add finally, apart from seeking knowledge, apart from what I call the correct spirit,
the niyat,
the niyat is also important, but you must have the what we call the ideal of pioneers. That pioneering must be there, because we do not know everything. Yes. So as pioneers, we have got to learn more. So the process of learning as a pioneer, must be there in order for you to excel. So I noticed that if you are honest, do your work properly with no personal objective, no personal agenda, and then you learn. Have that pioneering spirit, inshallah, Allah will be with you.
Will guide, will be your guide.
Yes.
Yes.
Because this is what happened to us
Yes.
when we first started. You know, we forgo I remember staff, the pioneer staff, when we started, 22 of us. You know, there were no computers at that time. You know, we designed our own form. You see, the important thing at that time is that when you talk about Takaful, you're talking about concept. How you translate that concept into practical operation, taking into what they call consideration the Sharia requirements and the legal requirements.
Yeah.
So they're all done by ourselves.
Yeah.
And then only after that we table it to our Sharia. Once they approve, okay. So, but what I'm saying is that the ingenuity, the pioneer spirit, were all there at that time. So, I think we have to go back to that. For anyone,
Go back to basics.
go back to basic for anyone
Inshallah.
to be successful in whatever venture,
In
more
whatever
so in
venture.
Takaful.
Thank you very much.
Zaina.
Thank you very much,
Nana.
Dato. I
Thank
think
you.
now that has been very enlightening. So I think thank you very much for the audience. So we had about 2 hours of this discussion. I hope, for those of you who stayed on towards the end, alhamdulillah, I hope that you've been able to
Inshallah.
get some sort of guidance, in terms of how to proceed forward. So thank you again very much, Dato Fadzli, for
Jazakallah again for having me.
attending. Thank you.